Hey friend, in this video today we're going to do a bit of a Q&A, and these are questions that I have collected from community members. So if you are interested in joining the community, there's a link below. It's an awesome space where you can come and connect with like-minded designers at similar stages in their career. We have a lot of cool events every month like Design Crit and guest talks. But anyway, I collected some questions from community members and I'm going to go through them today in this video. So grab yourself a cup of tea if you like, and let's get started. The first question is where to start in product design. There is so much noise out there, and yes, I agree. And honestly, my channel probably adds to the noise, so I am sorry about that. But truth is, there are a lot of resources out there about design. There are a lot of paths to becoming a designer, and I don't think there's one right way. I think everyone has their own recipe towards becoming a designer, and so it's kind of up to you to figure out what that recipe is. I will say, however, when I started first teaching myself to become a designer, I started by just opening up a design tool. At the time it was Adobe Illustrator, and designing, just like trying to design something and seeing if I actually enjoy the process of designing and enjoy being in a design tool. So what I would recommend is taking an app that you like, maybe an app from your phone, something you use every day, and putting it into a design tool like Figma and tracing over it, like trying to replicate and copy exactly the screen, and see if you actually enjoy the process of designing. This is really easy to do. Just take a screenshot on your phone, bring that into Figma, put it on an artboard, lower the opacity of that layer and lock it, and then literally trace over it and try to like recreate and redraw all of the elements. And by the end of that, you'll have a screen that looks exactly like the app on your phone, but that you technically made. I found this really helpful when I was first starting out because it got me kind of using the design tools, getting my hands dirty and seeing what it actually felt like to design something. So I think that's a pretty good place to start. Then from there, if you find that this is something that you do enjoy, then I think is when it's maybe a good time to kind of start looking online for different resources to kind of take you to the next step. There are a lot of courses out there. I do recommend starting really basic. One course that I like is Learning Figma by Georgia Davis, and she actually takes you through a few lessons on how to actually use the tool. Look, design isn't all about using a tool and drawing and creating in Figma, but that is a lot of it, and I think that's a good place to start. So take an app you like, try to recreate it, take a course in Figma, and I think you're on the right track. The next question is how to hire and work with freelancers. I've worked with freelancers in two capacities. One is when I was at Uber, we actually hired a freelancer and brought them onto our team, and they ended up staying on our team at Uber for 2 years. They basically acted as if they were a full-time permanent employee, but they were actually a freelancer the whole time. Now, I was not involved in the process of hiring and bringing on this person, but I believe that at the time they were a friend of the design manager of the team, and we were struggling with hiring anyone sort of to come on permanently full time. And so that's why we brought in a freelancer, and yeah, he ended up staying on our team for 2 years, working with us full time. The other capacity I've worked with freelancers is in my side projects. I have a couple of freelancers that help me run all of this, as well as the other things that I do on the side. I have someone who helps me edit my videos. I have someone who helps me do my graphics and YouTube thumbnails and Instagram account, and then also a virtual assistant. And the way that I've found these freelancers is basically through my own network. First of all, it's really important to me to only bring on freelancers that are already familiar with me and my content and my femke.design brand. I don't want to have to spend the time sort of explaining to someone what I'm trying to do here. Ideally, I can bring on a freelancer that is also kind of in tech, kind of understands what I'm doing, has been following my content for a while. So usually what I've done in the past is I've reached out to friends of mine who also have similar side projects and kind of asked them who they work with to help them with their side projects. That's how I found my current video editor, Belang. And I also have sometimes reached out to my audience on Twitter, for example, when I was looking for help to kind of bring my Instagram account to life. So I try to sort of remain within my existing network and audience because that's really important to me. Now, how I work with them is that I just have to get really good at delegating. I can't do everything on my own, especially given my side projects are not my full-time thing. So I have different freelancers for different things, right? Like a video editor, a virtual assistant. And so I try to delegate tasks that are relevant to their skill set and how they can help me out. And we also use Taskade as kind of our like project management tool where we have upcoming projects, we have tasks that we're working on, and I can assign tasks to different freelancers and set deadlines. So that's kind of how we work on a day-to-day basis. The next question is about growth, and this person asks, I'm targeting a promotion this year. Any advice on setting my yearly goals? First of all, awesome that you're targeting a promotion. My first piece of advice would be to talk about this with your manager. Your manager is there to help bring you to the next level and guide you throughout your career. If you're targeting a promotion specifically, it's really good to sit down and discuss with your manager what the expectations are of that next level. So maybe your company has some internal sort of competencies. This is sort of like a list of responsibilities for each role at each level. So maybe you could sit down together and kind of look at those and make sure you're on the same page with what the expectations are for that next level. Once you've done that, I found it really helpful to go through those competencies or through that list of responsibilities with my manager and discuss where I'm sort of meeting them and where I'm not. So where is there still opportunity and area for me to grow and develop my skill and craft to get to that next level. Then once you've identified those, you can use that to create your goals. So for example, maybe there's an expectation that at the next level you are really good at stakeholder management and you and your manager see that there's some area of opportunity there. And that's a great sort of starting point for you to create a goal around improving your skills in stakeholder management. And I find it really helpful to talk about and communicate your goals because then your manager can sort of help look out for opportunities that align with those goals, because your manager probably has more oversight on things that are happening and they can then sort of make sure that they're keeping their eye out for opportunities that align with the goals you have and the direction you want to go. So that's why I think it's really important to have these conversations with your manager. I feel like I'm talking really fast. Once you've set goals, it's also important to track them and keep having conversations about it. So I like to have sort of every 6 weeks a career sort of dedicated one-on-one with my manager where we talk about my goals, discuss my progress towards my goals and sort of what I can keep doing or do next. So make sure that it's a conversation that is ongoing. It shouldn't just be a sort of one and done, one conversation. Should be something that you're regularly talking about and working towards together. Next question is around content design. So when do you fill in the content in the design process? So this has differed for me a little bit at different companies depending on the resourcing that I have available to me. So for example, at Uber, where I would often have a dedicated content designer sort of working with me on a project, we would kick it off from day one and sort of look at the design and content together, and they would sort of own the content part, I would own the design part, but from day one we're thinking about how the content and design work together and how we can kind of create a cohesive experience. At Wealthsimple, where I'm at now, I don't always have dedicated content support because we just don't have enough content designers. So often it is up to me to actually create and sort of propose the content in my designs. Now, I find that while I am designing, I try to avoid using sort of filler text like lorem ipsum as much as possible. Now, this doesn't mean that as I'm designing, I'm like really seriously thinking about the content, but I'm at least kind of putting in something that's a little bit placeholder related to what the content should be about as I'm designing and as I'm creating. Then as I start to get to sort of the mid-fidelity stage where I'm starting to use design system components and starting to present my work for feedback and design reviews, I start giving a little bit more thought and consideration to the content at this stage because it's also something that I want feedback on. So I don't want to wait until I've like finished with the designs to then try and get content feedback, because I find that at that stage, maybe sometimes the feedback you get on content could actually influence the design. So in my opinion, these things should sort of be reviewed together. So in summary, I try to bring in content from day one, but if that is not possible, then I sort of put my best foot forward and try to propose my own content and my own suggestions and bring it to the team for feedback in my regular design reviews. And you should definitely be thinking about the content before you get to the high fidelity stage. So when you're about sort of at that mid-level, that's when you should really be thinking about it. Okay, someone else asked, I really struggle with documenting the process and then presenting the case study. So I do have a couple of videos on sort of portfolio presentation, writing case studies. I share my own examples of case studies that I've shared in the context of job interviewing. But I understand that documenting your design as you go and as you're working through your design process is difficult and it is time consuming. And I'll admit, I'm not perfect at this either. I'm not meticulously documenting everything all of the time. time. So what I try to do to approach this is sort of every time I'm having a little check-in or a checkpoint, like maybe I'm doing a design review or a crit or sharing something with my engineers for feedback, I just take a moment at that time to sort of document the latest decisions I've made, the outstanding questions I have, what I want feedback on, where we're at in the project. And so I just kind of use those little moments as time for me to sort of sit down and articulate my thoughts, my rationale, and like where I'm at in the project and what I need to move forward. That way, when you get to the end of the project, you have this kind of like history of all of these moments throughout your design process where you were making decisions or where you were getting feedback, and then you can kind of use that to help feed into your eventual case study. The next question is, have you ever designed with incomplete or conflicting information, and what was your approach? I feel like I have worked on projects where we maybe don't have like the data we want to have, or we're not like 100% sure about something. And usually in this case, we either try to dive into like the existing research we have to try to validate some of our questions, or we go and do our own research to validate that. Or thirdly, we just draw up our own hypothesis, and maybe we take a strategy of building out something in the context of doing an A/B test or something like that, or an experiment. That way we've kind of set ourselves some constraints and some guardrails for what we're going to do if we're seeing like really conflicting results, or we're seeing something that's surprising and we weren't expecting. Then we've kind of got some guardrails in place and we can kind of figure out next steps from there. So yeah, I feel like those are usually the three things I do, and usually in that order too. It's like, okay, first of all, what research or what information do we have already internally to try to answer these unknowns? Second, if we don't have that, can we go out and get those answers by doing some research? And then if not, thirdly, what's our hypothesis? What is our like best guess? Let's design towards that, and let's set ourselves up some guardrails or like an experiment or an A/B test to really try to validate that hypothesis. The next question is around sort of what to do or how to handle a situation when you're brought in as a product designer at a new company, and then when you get there, they want you to sort of focus on something that you weren't expecting to do. And this person gave me a little bit more context about their situation, which is basically they'd come in as a product designer to this company, were ready to start on projects, but then once they got there, the company or their manager asked them to focus on design systems because this person had some design systems background, and the company was so small that they didn't have anyone dedicated to it. And this designer is worried that they're going to kind of fall backwards because now they're not going to work on projects, but now they're kind of being assigned to working on the design system, which is not really something that they signed up for. This is pretty common to see at smaller scale companies where they might not have dedicated teams or dedicated resources, and if you come in with a skill that the design team is lacking, then there's a chance that they're going to want to sort of use you and use your skill set to help them out in that area. Now, this designer is more interested in working on actual projects and not the design system. And so what I would do in this situation is make that known to their manager that, hey, this isn't something that I'm actually really interested in doing. Instead, I'm really interested in doing this. However, maybe there is a compromise that can be made temporarily. So if the company really does need someone to work on this right now and that person is best suited to do it, maybe they can have a conversation around either like a fixed period of time. So like, okay, I'll do this for 3 months. Like, let's set ourselves a time frame for this. Or maybe there is another sort of way to kind of discuss the percentage overlap between product design projects and design systems. So for example, let's say, okay, let's dedicate 2 days a week to design systems and then the other 3 days a week to actual design project work. This is an important conversation to have because not only is it about your goals and what you want at the company, but it's also about setting the right expectations and making sure that your manager is aware of what you want and like how to best support you in getting there. Hopefully this is a temporary situation, and by you letting the company know it's not something that you're necessarily interested in focusing on full time, then maybe that can also help them understand that, hey, maybe they should actually put in some resources into hiring someone to come in and work on this full time. This designer was really afraid of falling behind because they wouldn't be dedicated full time on projects. Don't think that's going to happen. Either way, you're still like learning, progressing, and moving forward in your design career. You're just building upon different skill sets. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Okay, friend, that is all the time we have today for questions. As mentioned, these were questions that came directly from community members, and there are a little over 100 members members in the community today. So if you want to join like-minded designers and sort of level up your design career and get more sort of behind the scenes one-on-one time with me, then go and check out the community right here. Have a wonderful week. See you next time. Yay!